Basically, MAGLEV can be defined as the system that enables a train to repel and push up off the track, while at the same time enables the train to move in such elevated condition, taking advantage of the lack of friction. Beside the cost of construction, another factor to be considered is the fact that MAGLEV trains require the use of rare earth elements, which may be quite expensive. It was 1902 and 1907 when the German inventor Alfred Zeden submitted 2 patents for the first linear motor propelled train. Linear motors are in fact a type of electric motors that have its stator and rotor sort of unrolled, so instead of producing a rotational movement, they produce a linear force along their length. In a linear motor, the electrical energy is converted to a linear mechanical energy with high efficiency, which is done through the electromagnetic interaction between a coil assembly and a permanent magnet assembly. Okay, that's just one piece of the puzzle. In 1908, the Cleveland mayor Tom L. Johnson filed a patent for a wheelless high-speed railway, levitated by an induced magnetic field. After that, we had a series of patents for magnetic levitation trains, propelled by linear motors such as those made by Robert Goddard, Emil Bachelet, and Hermann Kemper during 1930s and 1940s. Keep in mind, all these were only ideas, drafts and patents. However, in the late 40s, the British electrical engineer Eric Laithwaite, a professor at Imperial College London, developed the first full-sized working model of a linear induction motor. Since, as we indicated, linear motors don't require physical contact between the vehicle and the guideway, they became a common fixture on the experiments relating to the advanced transportation systems. One such project was a so-called tracked hovercraft. It was an experimental high-speed train developed in the UK during 1960s. It combined 2 inventions, the hovercraft and linear induction motor, in an effort to produce a train system that would enable 400 km per hour passenger service with lowered capital costs. However, tracked hovercraft was cancelled as many other similar projects as part of the budget cuts in 1973. Finally, in the early 1970s, the already mentioned professor Eric Laithwaite have discovered something which might be described as the final piece of the MAGLEV puzzle. In its essence, it was a new and special arrangement of magnets in science known as the magnetic river. This invention allowed a single linear motor to produce both lift and forward propulsion, allowing a MAGLEV system to be built with a single set of magnets. Because of this breakthrough, Dr. Laithwaite became known as the father of MAGLEV. Although maglevs have been studied and developed for more than half a century since the invention of magnetic river, only a few countries today have the capacity to implement this technology in practice. Furthermore, the only countries that have studied and tested maglev technology so far are the UK, USA, Japan, Germany, USSR, China, and South Korea. In order to explain how maglev works, we must understand some basic concepts of physics. In the first line, concepts of attraction and repulsion of magnets, but also the concepts of electromagnetism and superconductivity. Since pretty much everybody understands that same poles of the 2 magnets oppose, while the opposite ones attract each other, we will briefly introduce only the 2 remaining terms. First one is electromagnetism, one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature. What is even more important, electromagnet is the object which creates a magnetic field when electric current flows through it. It is usually a simple conductor such as wire or cable, or even better, the combination of iron core and a wire wrapped around. The direction of current determines the electromagnet's polarity, and in addition, if you change the direction of current, the poles of electromagnet will switch. Put that somewhere as a note. Our second term is superconductivity. Superconductivity is a property of a complete disappearance of electrical resistance in various solids as they are cooled below a characteristic temperature. This temperature varies for different materials, but in general is below 20 kelvins. As superconducting magnets are super strong and super efficient, They are generally used to generate powerful magnetic fields which have the ability to levitate and propel the train. Now, maglevs. There are two main types of maglev trains: those based on electromagnetic suspension, also known as EMS, and those based on electrodynamic suspension, also known as EDS. Both types have similar propulsion principles based on the linear motor, while the main difference is in the way how levitation is achieved. Electromagnetic suspension uses the attractive force between electromagnets present underside the train and the magnets present on the guideway to levitate the train. This attracting force keeps the train about 1.3 centimeters above the guideway, bearing in mind it is strong enough to overcome gravitational force. The stabilization of train is achieved with the help of side guidance magnets. The propulsion is secured by constantly changing the polarity of magnets on the track, which, speaking in terms of linear motors, acts as stator. In that way, the electromagnets on board, which acts as rotor, chase the current forward along the track. In that way, the train moves forward, while the speed is controlled by changing the frequency of alternating current. Having in mind that magnetic attraction varies inversely with the square of distance, minor changes in distance between the magnets and the rail can produce greatly varying forces. These changes in force dictate the need for a sophisticated feedback system which maintain a constant gap of approximately 8 to 10 mm. This method is simpler to implement than EDS, and it also has the capability to maintain levitation at zero speed, which is not the case with EDS. Electrodynamic suspension, on the other side, in order to levitate the train, uses the repulsive force created between the sets of magnets of same polarity, which are located on the train and on the guideway. This repulsive force is high enough to overcome gravitational force and allows a train to levitate 10 centimeters above the guideway. When a train moves along the track, the supercooled superconducting magnets on either side of the train would induce electric current in the levitation coils and create a magnetic field. Levitation coils are located on the guideway and they have the shape of figure 8. When those coils experience the changing magnetic field made by the moving superconductors, two currents are induced that oppose the change in the magnetic field. One below that creates a reactive magnetic field that opposes the superconducting magnet's pole, and one above that creates a pole that attracts it. Those two combined are responsible for levitation of the vehicle 10 centimeters above the ground. Propulsion, on the other side, is achieved by a linear synchronous motor whose stator is additional coils in the guideway, while the rotor is superconductor which is already located on the train. The train is propelled in a similar way like in case of EMS by constant changes in the polarity of the track side magnets. The benefits of this method are incredible stability at high speeds and the ability to maintain correct distance between the train and the guideway. The bad side is the fact that sufficient speed must be achieved in order to levitate the train at all. For this reason, the train must be equipped with wheels or some other form of landing gear in order to support the train until it reaches takeoff speed.